When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
George Clooney and Brad Pitt's new movie, Wolves, is on Apple TV Plus September 27th.
That's where I want you to be now.
So if you want to see George Clooney and Brad Pitt, go to Apple TV Plus.
You got to start the story there.
Or if you want to see Brad Pitt and George Clooney, go to Apple TV Plus.
I am enjoying the show.
And if you want to see their new movie, Wolves,
You can't do it, I'm going to help you out. I can do it, so do it.
definitely go to Apple TV Plus.
Admit it, it's cool. Okay, fine, it was very cool.
Wolves, streaming September 27th on Apple TV Plus. Rated R.
This episode is brought to you by Microsoft Azure. Turn your ideas into reality with an Azure free account. Get everything you need to develop apps across cloud and hybrid environments, scale workloads, create cloud-connected mobile experiences, and so much more. Discover what you can create with popular services free for 12 months. Learn more at azure.com. That's AZURE.com. And sign up for a free account to start building in the cloud today.
Welcome to the Two-Footed Podcast, your daily dive into the biggest stories and talking points from the world of football, with a particular focus on the Premier League. Before we get started, a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider, and one of the many benefits of their service is that you can change your IP address to unlock geo-restricted content. And for Premier League fans like us, that means you can catch all the action no matter where you are. So if you use their UK VPN, that means you get all live matches on Sky Sports, TNT Sport, Amazon Prime, and the highlights with Match of the Day on BBC iPlayer. Furthermore, you can switch your location to the USA to access all those matches you may otherwise miss using American streaming services like Peacock and USA Network. If you sign up now, you can get 25% off by using the code EPL25OFF. That's EPL25 off at checkout for 25% off. That's whether you choose their VPN router or the software app for your favorite devices. Liberty Shield have got you covered. Oh, and don't forget, after today's episode, be sure to check out our shorter bite-sized pod, the Two-Footed Extra. That will keep you up to speed with all the latest news and gossip. And be sure to check out the other shows that EPL Index offers. Today was hugely enjoyable, a tad predictable, previewing every Premier League round with a different guest each week, where he really does put them through the ringer. You come off that show, I've guested on that show, you come off it, and you feel like you've been interrogated. It's a really good listen, though. There's also our new show, our roundup show. It's called The Final Whistle. It's hosted by Nina Kauser and Ben Poskod, and they summarize all the matches and the big talking points. It comes out every Sunday evening, so make sure you're listening. Now, let's dive in to today's biggest stories. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Thursday. It is the 19th of September. Hope you're all well. Weather is once again outstanding here, which is tremendous. Champions League last night, fair to say my predictions did not go very well. Let's start with Bologna 0, Shakhtar Donetsk 0. Now, Bologna did dominate the game in terms of their attacking intent, in terms of the chances that they got, but they did also concede a very early penalty, and Georgi Sudikov, who I'm a big fan of, missed the chance to win the game for Bologna early on. Bologna, like I said, did dominate. They had a lot of chances, 17 shots, only 4 on target, so quite wayward with their finishing. Shakhtar only had 4 shots with 1 on target. So Bologna will feel that they should have won this game, but unfortunately for them, they didn't. And for Shakhtar, that's a great point. It's a really bad result for Bologna, though, and it carries on their poor start to the season. Next up, Sparta Prague 3, Red Bull Salzburg 0. Karanin on 2 minutes, Olatunji on 48, and Lackey on 42, and Lackey on 58. Sparta Prague with just a counter-attacking masterclass here. Just allowed Salzburg to have the ball. Salzburg had 71% of the play, and Sparta just tore them asunder. And truthfully, 3-0 flattered Salzburg. It could have been 4 or 5. This was a team of experienced pros up against a team of novices and a novice manager who really looked out of his depth, as did most of his players. Not a good start for Salzburg in their Champions League campaign, but they do have 7 games to try and turn it around and secure a playoff spot. PSG won, Girona 0. Girona nearly pulled off a great 0-0 draw, but a late own goal from Gazzaniga gave PSG the victory. From there, we go to Bruges, Club Bruges 0, Dortmund 3. I said I thought 0-0. As the game went on, I thought Bruges were going to win. They had, I thought, the better of the opportunities. They pulled a couple of really good saves out of Gregor Kobel. They hit the crossbar. But Jamie Bernal-Gittens with a deflected shot on 75. Same player on 86. And then a late Guirassy penalty on 95 give Dortmund a good start to their Champions League campaign, and they'll be very happy with that. It carries on their good start to the season in general. Celtic 5, Slovan Bratislava 1. Now, Celtic should have been 1-up early. Maeda missed a good chance. Then Liam Scales puts them 1-up on 17. Stays 1-0 till half-time. Kyogo scores early in the second half. Then there's an Arne Ingels penalty. Then Kevin Wimmer gets one back for Bratislava. Maeda finally gets his goal, and then Adam Adey scores. It's a great night for Celtic. It's a big win for Celtic. And I couldn't be happier with it. Absolutely thrilled. Tremendous. Even though it means Brendan Rodgers winning a game, I'm actually thrilled by it. Finally then, the big game of the night. Man City 0, Inter 0. Both sides had great chances. Gundogan probably had City's best chance late on with a header. He then had another header after that was a little bit more difficult. The first header was really the big chance. He headed straight at Jan Sommer. Phil Foden worked the keeper a couple of times. Haaland dragged one just wide. Wasn't really in the game. Thought Inter did a really good job at nullifying him. And to be fair, I thought Inter just did a really good job in general. I thought Inter created the better opportunities in the game with a couple of counterattacks. But unfortunately, they weren't able to take advantage of them. There was one where Darmian breaks through and you're just asking him to hit it as hard as he can, just low and hard. And instead, he tried to get clever and backheel it to Barea, and it petered out to nothing. I thought Inter were fantastic. Genuinely, I thought Simone Inzaghi coached a near perfect game. And then I thought Joe Cole showed exactly why when people say, oh, I'd rather listen to ex-pros talk about football, I just shake my head and wonder why. I saw Carragher say it recently as well. I saw Carragher say something along those lines too. And I just thought, when there's microphones been put in the hands of people like Joe Cole and Rio Ferdinand and Danny Murphy and Danny Mills and Gabby Agbonlahor and all the rest of these mindless idiots, I really do wonder what it is that encourages Sky and BT and TalkSport and all the rest to pay them significant amounts of money to display the fact that they know absolutely nothing about the game that they played. Like, Joe Cole's waffle after the game was just embarrassing. And at least Rory Smith was there, because Rory Smith is, number one, a very good writer, but number two, he looks at the game the right way and he thinks about it the right way and he talks about it in a way where he gets his thoughts across in a very easy to digest manner. Now, I know some people think he comes across a little bit aloof, a little bit snobbish at times. I think that's just because he's well read. But like when you watch the contrast of the two of them last night, Rory Smith giving deep tactical insight into the game, but explaining it in very simplistic terms, so he doesn't come across like he's speaking down to anybody. And then Joe Cole struggling to string sentences together and, frankly, waffling nonsense about things that didn't really happen in the game. And then looking at the Inter side and claiming that he doesn't think they've got enough. Like, look at the Inter team that played last night, okay? So Darmian starts right wing back. They have Dumfries to come in, who's better than him, and Dumfries did come off the bench last night. Augusto starts on the left. Fede DeMarco's better than him. He can come in there. In central defence, they've started with Bissek, Azerbi, and Bastoni. They can bring in De Vries, and they can bring in Benji Pavard. And he's claiming they've got no depth. Then he said about the midfield, he said, you look at, he said Barrea's top class. Then he said he didn't think Çalhanoğlu was an elite player. Now, I don't think he's a great player, but he is a very good player. And then he mentioned Mkhitaryan, but he ignored Zielinski, who started, and Fratesi, who come off the bench, both of whom are excellent. And Mkhitaryan can still add something. And then up front, like they start with Thuram and Taremi, and Lautaro Martinez comes off the bench. I didn't even mention Christian Aslani, who was on the bench and didn't come on last night. They've got Jan Sommer in goal. They've got an excellent backup in Josep Martinez. So when I hear Joe Cole say he thinks their squad is weak, I don't really think he knows anything about their squad. I really don't think he knows anything about their squad. Inter's squad is very deep and it's very balanced. And you've got other players who will contribute across the course of the season. Like Joaquin Correa, I think will get opportunities this year. If assuming he stays, he might still leave. But he's a player that Simeone's had great success with in the past when they were together at Lazio. Now, he was on loan at Marseille last year. I'm not really sure what went on, whether he had a falling out with Simeone or whether he just wanted to go in search of more game time, whether he just fancied a new challenge maybe. But I think he's a player that can contribute for them this year. When Buchanan comes back, I think he's someone that can contribute as a wing-back potentially. But also he gives Simone Inzaghi the opportunity, if he wants to switch from 3-5-2 to 3-4-3 and play a winger in the front three, he could play Buchanan. This is a very, very good squad. Young Thomas Palacios, the Argentine centre-back they brought in the summer, I think we'll see a bit of him. So, like, they've got 6 good centre-backs, 2 good goalkeepers, a good crop of midfielders. They've got good left wing-backs. I'm not overly keen on the right wing-backs because I'm not a big fan of Denzel Dumfries. And personally, I think Darmian is just okay. He's also 34 at this point now, but he's a good squad player to have. He'll give you a 6 out of 10. And then the forward group is really impressive. Really impressive. Lautaro is one of the best strikers in the world. And then you've got Marcus Thuram, who's a good player. Joaquin Correa, who's a good player. Arnautovic is well past his best, and personally I wouldn't want him in my club, but he's still a decent player. And maybe Taremi is flat out good. So, like, I just don't see what it is that Joe Cole is taking umbrage with. If he'd said, I think there's one flaw in that team, it's right wing back, I'd have said, you know what, fair enough. But Denzel Dumfries is grand. But to say they don't have enough, this team got to the final 2 years ago. And they're better now than they were then. So I really don't understand Joe Cole's logic. They didn't lose anybody of real importance in the summer. The only player I would have liked to have kept is Stefano Sensi, just because I've always liked Stefano Sensi. But there was no real reason for Inter to keep him. They added decent players. Like they've done well considering their finances. They've kept their best players and they've continued to add to the squad. I just don't know what Joe Cole was talking about. Anyway, tonight in our exclusive Champions League week, we have Thursday night Champions League football. And as Guy Drinkle put it, that is nothing more than woke nonsense. However, there's still games to watch. We have 6 of them. First game, Red Star Belgrade taking on Sturm Graz. No, taking on Benfica, taking on Benfica. Now, Benfica have had a bizarre start to the season. They've sacked their manager, Roger Schmidt. They've brought in Bruno Lage, who was there before, who, since then has gone to Wolves, been with Botafogo. I think there was another club in there somewhere as well. They're currently 5th in the league. They're 5 points behind Sporting. Red Star are top of the Serbian Super League. They have 19 points in their 7 games. They're unbeaten domestically. Nobody enjoys going to play them at home. Nobody enjoys going to Belgrade to play Red Star. Their atmosphere is ferocious. Their fans drive that team on, and there's some decent players in that team. That one should be a good game. Benfica will feel pressure to win, but ultimately, I think that's going to be a very difficult game for them. That's a 5:45 kickoff. The other 5:45 kickoff is Feyenoord, who currently sit in 8th in the Eredivisie. Now, they are unbeaten through 4 games, but they've only won 1. So not been a great start for them. New manager, of course, at Feyenoord this year. Arne Slot left. Brian Priskett comes in. Brian Priskett, if you remember last season, was the manager of the Sparta Prague team. And he's pretty highly regarded. Like, he's seen as a very attack-minded, inventive coach. They did get walloped by Liverpool in the Europa League last season, but they got out of the group stage, which I think was impressive. And they knocked out Galatasaray in the kind of knockout play-out round thing. They got walloped by Liverpool, but ultimately they went on and won the league title. And in his time there, he won the league title twice and the Czech Cup. He's also won the Danish Super League with Midtjylland. So he is an accomplished manager. He's taking over from Arne Slot, so big shoes to fill. But I think ultimately once they give him some time, he will get things turned around there and get them back on the same track that Arne Slot had them on. Leverkusen, 3 games into the Bundesliga season, they are 3 points behind Bayern, and they've lost a game in the Bundesliga for the first time in well over a year. I'm still confident that they'll be very, very good this year, and I think this is an opportunity for them to get their Champions League campaign up and running. Brest at home to Sturm Graz. Now, Sturm Graz are top of the Austrian Bundesliga. They obviously won the Austrian Bundesliga last year and also won the Cup. So things have been very impressive for them over the past 14 months or so. This will be a big test, no question. Christian Elzer, the manager there, another one that's quite highly thought of. He's done fantastic work since taking over at Sturm Graz, and this is a big opportunity for them. Going to France to take on a Brest team that last season shocked everybody to get into the Champions League, another one of those teams that nobody expected to get in, and in they are. They've had a terrible start to this season, though. They are currently sitting 14th with 1 win and 3 draws from their campaign thus far. Now, they did get a couple of decent signings in during the summer. Kamori Doumbia came in from Reims. Mama Balde came in from Lyon. I do quite like Julian Le Cardinal. We'll see how he gets on there. There's talent in the squad, no question. They brought in some decent loans. Roman Favourite came in from Bournemouth. Abdullah Sima came in from Brighton. And Souleymane Koulibaly from Dortmund is a very, very talented central defender, one to keep an eye on for certain. They didn't lose many of huge importance. Martin Satriano was there, went back to Inter at the end of his loan. I think he's at Lens this year. Jordan Amavi was in on loan from Marseille. They've now made that one, I believe, a permanent deal on a free. Cartier, he's gone. They didn't keep him. He wasn't great anyway. Steve Mooney, he's gone to Augsburg. I think they can replace what he offered in the squad. I think they're in good shape. I really do. I really think they're in good shape this year, squad-wise. But they have started the season badly, and Eric Roy will have to get things turned around. But he did phenomenal work last year. Like, absolutely phenomenal work. So I would back him to make good this season. Atalanta against Arsenal. Obviously, Arsenal 3 wins and a draw from their first 4 Premier League games. They'll have Declan Rice back for this one, but excuse me, reports coming out yesterday that Martin Odegaard could be set to miss at least 2 months, and that is a major blow for the Gunners because he is their primary creative force. I know Saka gets more assists. Assists don't equal creation. Assists are final balls. Creation is the creation of opportunity. That's what Martin Odegaard brings. Atalanta haven't had a great start. They are currently 9th in the table. 2 wins, 2 draws. They obviously won the Europa League last season. They will be hopeful of carrying that momentum into this year. But the league hasn't gone great for them. Now, one of the defeats was Inter. That's fine, but they did get walloped in it. Like, that's the disappointment. They got beaten 4-0. They also lost away to Torino, and I think that's fine. They've only played 1 home game so far. That was against Fiorentina, and they did win the game. They came from 1-0 down to equalise, and then 2-1 down to win 3-2. So I think they'll get it on track. I'm looking forward to this game. I think this is a really interesting tactical battle between Gasperini and Arteta. And then obviously Atletico Madrid against RB Leipzig is certainly an interesting game to me. I'm very much looking forward to seeing more of this Atleti team. They've had a good start to the season. They're unbeaten through 5 league games, 11 points, same as Real, 4 points behind. Same as Real and Villarreal, I should give them their credit. 4 points behind Barcelona, who've made a great start to the season. Leipzig in the Bundesliga currently sit 3rd, 2 wins and a draw. So, again, a decent start for them. And then finally, we've got Monaco against Barcelona. Like I say, Barcelona 15 points and 15. Can't argue with how their start to the season has gone. Very, very impressive under Hansi Flick. Monaco, 3rd in Ligue 1, 2 points off top, unbeaten. They'll be really happy with how they stand right now. So that one should be a good game and a tough test for Barca going to Monaco. So I will pick Red Star to beat Benfica. I'll pick Leverkusen to beat Feyenoord. I'm going to go Brest and Sturm Graz, the draw. Arsenal to beat Atalanta, but I think it's close. Atleti to beat Leipzig, and Barcelona to beat Monaco. And I'll be back after the break.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week, and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Right, welcome back. So, didn't do any nostalgia yesterday. Wanted to just do a little bit today. And a friend of mine is interviewing Ali McCoist in the next couple of days. So that sort of gave me the idea to have a look at Scottish football when Ali McCoist was breaking through in the late 70s, early 80s. So, look, we know that Celtic and Rangers dominate Scottish football. There's no way to look at it any other way. Celtic have won 54 league titles. Rangers have won 55, although I would say Rangers have won one. A former club won 54. This club has won one, but, they'll claim 55. Celtic will even that up this year, almost certainly. And we're in the era of the Scottish Premiership, which began in 2013. Rangers have won one title, Celtic have won all the rest. In the Scottish Premier League era, which was 1998 to 2013, Rangers and Celtic dominated. They won every title between them. But prior to that, in what was called the Scottish Football League Premier Division, while Rangers and Celtic did dominate, there were two other teams that won league titles. Now, we could go back further. You go back to the old Scottish Football League Division 1, and it ran from 55 to 75. And in 58, Hearts won the title. They won it again in 60. In 62, Dundee win the title, their first and only title. And in 65, Kilmarnock won the title. Again, their first and only title. And, you think of a club like Hearts, who are a big club. They've won 4 league titles. You think of a club like Hibs. They've won 2. They've won 4 as well. Their last one was 1952. Hearts' last one, 1960. And they're 2 of the biggest clubs in Scotland. And yet, the success just hasn't been there for them because of the 2 dominant forces that are Celtic and Rangers. But there was a magical spell in Scottish football between 1977 and 1985, where 2 other teams crashed the party. One of them had won 1 title prior to that. The other had not. Neither of them have won titles since. So the league gets rebranded in 1975, and Rangers win the league title with Celtic second, Hibs third, Motherwell fourth, and Hearts fifth. Kenny Dalglish was the top scorer with 24 goals. And it just seemed like business as usual. The following year, Celtic win the title. Willie Pettigrew is top scorer. He gets 21. Celtic finish top, Rangers second, Aberdeen third, Dundee United finish fourth. 1978, Rangers win the title. Aberdeen finish second. Dundee third, Hibs fourth, Celtic all the way down in fifth. Derek Johnston is the top scorer. (1978) Celtic win the title again. Then it's Rangers. Third place Dundee. Fourth place Aberdeen. And then in 1980, the 79-80 season, Aberdeen win the league title. Now, bear in mind, this is the first time since 1965, when Kilmarnock won the title, that anyone else has dared to knock the big 2 off the perch. Now, we know very famously that this is Alex Ferguson. And this is the beginning of what is unquestionably a historic run that he put together at Aberdeen. Now, it's worth pointing out he'd won the Scottish First Division, which the second, if we're looking at tiers, it's the second division. He won it in 1977 with St. Mirren. And then, because of his incredible work there, draws the eye of Aberdeen, who he joins in 78. So he doesn't leave St. Mirren after promotion. He goes into the division, does his best, and then, having kept them safe, kept them up, he moves on to Aberdeen. And again, this is an Aberdeen team that had started to knock on the door a little bit. They'd had a second place finish in 78. They appoint Ferguson. He comes in fourth the first season, but then league title the second season. Very, very impressive. Doug Somner is the top scorer that season. Celtic second, St. Mirren third, with the guts of Ferguson's team. Dundee United finished fourth. Rangers finished fifth. Now in 81, it's back to normal. Celtic win the title, but Aberdeen finished second. Rangers third. St. Mirren fourth. And Dundee United fifth. In 82, Celtic again, but Aberdeen again second. Rangers third. Dundee United fourth. And St. Mirren fifth. 83, Dundee United win the league title. Charlie Nicholas is top scorer in the league. Celtic finished second. Aberdeen third. Those three teams, 56 points, 55 and 55. 1 point separating the top three. 1 goal and 1 point separating Dundee and Celtic. Both of them scored 90. Dundee conceded 35. Celtic conceded 36. Now, Aberdeen only scored 76, but they only conceded 25. So they were only 4 goals behind in the goal difference column. But Dundee United, I should say, put together the perfect season and go on to win the league title that year. And this manager isn't talked about enough. Jim McLean. Jim McLean was appointed Dundee United manager in 1971. He had played his career with Hamilton Academical, Clyde, Dundee, and Kilmarnock. He never played for Dundee United. He retired in 1970 and took over at Dundee United in 71. He was 34 years of age when he took over. And now I've gone through a bunch of seasons, and how many times have we mentioned them as a top 4 team? They're knocking on the door, and finally, in 1983, they win the league title. Now, it's worth noting, prior to that, he'd also won 2 league cups with Dundee. After this, Dundee United. After this, he would also get to the UEFA Cup final in 1987, and he would lose to IFK Gothenburg. And that was an IFK Gothenburg team that had put together in the early 80s by Sven-Göran Eriksson. They'd won the UEFA Cup in 82. There'd been some turnover and some change, obviously, but here they were in 87, winning it for the second time, denying Dundee United. And that was really the end of the great run that McLean had with Dundee United. But what an unbelievable achievement to win a league title with a club that had never won one before, haven't won one since, and likely won't win one again for a very, very long time, as well as, like I say, 2 Scottish League Cups. So that's 1983. 1984, Aberdeen win the league title again. Celtic finish second, Dundee United third, Rangers fourth, Hearts fifth. St Mirren have dropped back at this point. The following year, just to prove it wasn't a fluke, Ferguson and Aberdeen win it again. Back-to-back titles, third title in total. Celtic second, Dundee United third, Rangers fourth, St Mirren fifth. And that St Mirren team, like I said, that club had been rebuilt by Ferguson. Like, so much of their good run in the 80s, after he was gone, he left in 78, remember, but they had a really good run after that of getting into Europe on a regular basis, and so much of that was because of the foundations that he had laid. And look how many times Rangers are failing to finish in the top three, let alone failing to win it, failing to finish in the top three. In this span, Rangers won the title in 78, didn't win it again until 87. Finished second once and third twice, but were out of the top three in the rest of those seasons. Didn't finish top three in 80, 83, 84, 85, or 86. And they win it again in 87. They bounce back. Dundee United, 1 league title, 6 third place finishes. Aberdeen, 3 league titles, 3 second place finishes, and 1 third place finish. That's so impressive. And that run in Scottish football is what we should hope that the Scottish League could possibly get back to at some point. Not necessarily where it's, multiple seasons of Aberdeen winning it or Dundee winning it or whatever, but at least to the point where those teams are competitive. Your Aberdeens, your Hearts, your Hibs, Motherwell, whoever, Aberdeen, there's a lot of good clubs in Scotland. And it would be great to see that league start to get stronger. It's such a duopoly with Rangers and Celtic now. Like, from that Dundee United title, the third one, in 1985, this is year 40. This is season 40 since then. And it's just been the Rangers and Celtic show. Now, there's been seasons where, Hearts have finished second, or Aberdeen have finished second, Motherwell finished second once. Twice, actually. Oh, I tell a lie, it was 3 times. One of them, though, was Rangers were out of the league, so I'm not sure it counts. We've had a year where Inverness, Caledonia, Thistle get into the top 3. We've had Kilmarnock in the top 3. But it would be great to see those clubs close the gap a bit more. It would be great to see more money put into the Scottish game. And we're seeing at the moment, Tony Bloom, owner of Brighton and Union St. Gelo, he is putting money into Hearts. And it looks like Hearts are going to become part of his portfolio. And they will then have access to Star Lizard and the data that they provide. And if we look at what it's meant for Brighton, that is one of the great stories in football over the last 15 years, how they've just triumphed up through the divisions into the Premier League. And now it's not a thing where people look at Brighton and think, oh, I wonder will they survive. Now it's, I wonder will they get Europe. And you look at Union St. Gelo, like they were in the 2nd division when he bought the club, and they've now finished 2nd in the division, in the top division, twice in the last 3 years. A team that had been largely irrelevant for 60, 70 years. The last time they won the league title was 90 years ago. They won a Belgian Cup last year. under his watch, under his management and leadership. They're playing in major European competitions. That's a tremendous turnaround for them. They're in the Europa League again this year. They were in the Europa League last year. They were in it the year before. They've played in the Europa Conference League. The one hurdle left for them is to actually get into the Champions League. Rangers stopped them in 2023, and this year it was Slavia Prague. That's the one hurdle left. Obviously winning the league title as well, but from a European standpoint. But if Tony Bloom puts that type of energy and that type of intelligence and that type of thought process and operations process into Hearts, maybe we see Hearts start to trouble those top teams. And maybe, just maybe, we get to see another little era where someone else breaks the old firm. Alex Ferguson rightly gets all the credit. Phenomenal achievements with Aberdeen. 3 league titles, 4 Scottish Cups, and the Scottish League Cup, a European Cup Winners' Cup, and the European Super Cup. That is absolutely amazing. And remember, they beat Real Madrid in the final of that Cup Winners' Cup. They didn't beat some bums, they beat Real Madrid. But it's important to remember Jim McLean and what he contributed to that era. He passed away 4 years ago, at the age of 83. He only ever managed one club. And like I said, he was 34 when he took over. He was 56 when he left. 22 years at the one club. They never managed again. Incredible. Absolutely incredible what those two men accomplished back then. Right, back after the break. Right, welcome back. So, I've seen a report today from Sami Mokbel suggesting that the agents of Manchester City players are starting to sound out other clubs about potential moves because there is a feeling within the squad that the relegation threat is more real than the club would like to let on. So, thought for the last part of today's pod, we'd play a little game, go through the Manchester City squad and find new homes for everybody. So, Kyle Walker is up first. Now, given his age, Kyle Walker is 34. He'll turn 35 at the end of this season. He doesn't have a ton of time left. There is obviously the possibility that he could go abroad, but I'd like to see him go back to where it all began for Kyle Walker. I'd like to see Kyle Walker go back to Sheffield United. So that's where he's going. Ruben Diaz up next. I think he makes a ton of sense for Real Madrid. They want a centre-back. They're being linked with Saliba. They're not going to get Saliba. They've been linked with Romero. I don't think they're going to get Romero. I think Diaz and Rudiger would make a really good pairing. Rudiger's pace and athleticism makes up for the flaw in Diaz's game, which is that he's not quick. And Diaz's organisation and reading of the game, I think, makes up for the flaws in Rudiger's game. So, Ruben Diaz, we're going to send you to Real Madrid. John Stones is next. I think Bayern Munich. I think John Stones and Kim Min-jae is a really good centre-back pairing. So we're saying John Stones joins Harry Kane at Bayern Munich. Nathan Ake. I think he's outstanding. He can play multiple positions. I think he's a fit for a lot of top clubs. I'm going to say Nathan Ake. Nathan Ake to Juventus. Him and Bremer, I think, is a good pairing. I think he would alleviate the flaws in Bremer's game. Mateo Kovacic, obviously a very good all-round midfielder, can play as the attacking midfielder if you need him to, can play as the defensive midfielder if you need him to, but he is generally just an all-round central midfielder. And I think the best spot for him would be Inter Milan. I think he fits like a glove into that Inter Milan team. I think you put him and Barea in that midfield with Çalhanoğlu. I think that works really well. He's obviously been there before. He knows the club. I think that's one that makes sense. Erling Braut Haaland. I mean, there's only certain clubs that would pay the wages. I'm just going to stick him at Barcelona. I just think, like, PSG is the easy answer. Barcelona is the good answer because I think him with Lamine Yamal, Pedri, Gavi, and Dani Olmo, and potentially Nico Williams next season, I just think that's a lot of fun. And I think it closes the gap on Real. I think it's the only way Barca could close the gap on Real. So Erling Haaland to Barcelona. Jack Grealish. I suppose the return to Villa is what makes the most sense. Now, they have Jacob Ramsey playing on the left, but I would swap Ramsey to the right, drop John McGinn, and just bring Grealish back in then on the left. Jeremy Doku, very frustrating but very talented winger. He's the type I could see being enticing to a club like PSG, but also to a club like Newcastle, who I think could use him on the right wing. Rodri. I mean, Real is again the kind of the obvious one, but they've got Tchouaméni, they've got Camavinga. They don't need a six, but they are been linked with him. Again, the fun move is Barcelona because they are desperately in need of a six. But if I'm giving them Haaland, I can't give them both. So Rodri goes to Real, and Real sell Tchouaméni to Liverpool. KDB, I think it's got to be MLS. LA Galaxy for KDB. Stefan Ortega, solid goalkeeper. I think he makes sense for a couple of German clubs. I think he's an upgrade on Verdecki, so we'll say Bayer Leverkusen. Ilkay Gundogan. I'd like to see him go. To Galatasaray. He's of Turkish descent, obviously, and I think it would be a big deal if he went and played in the Turkish league. Bernardo Silva. Now, I know he wants to go to Barcelona, but we're not going to do that. We're going to put him at PSG because I do think he is what, what's his name? Luis Enrique would like. Plus, there's a couple of young Portuguese players there. I think it would work. Josko Gvardiol. This one's unrealistic, but I'm taking him for Liverpool and I'm not having any arguments. Manuel Akanji. Manuel Akanji. That's tough. That is tough. He's 29, so that rules out certain clubs. Not sure there's an Italian club. Do you know what I'll do with him? Atletico Madrid. They need a centre-back. I think he'd work well. Savinho, super talented young player, obviously. Huge amounts of ability on the ball. I'm going to say for Savinho, Real Sociedad, because I think they'll sell Kubo next summer. So Real Sociedad for Savinho. Matthias Nunes, very good midfielder. We're also going to send him to Atletico Madrid. I know I wasn't willing to do it with Haaland and Rodri for Barca. this isn't the same with Akanji and Nunes. He works at Atletico Madrid under Simeone. Ederson, I think it's pretty clear he'd like to go to Saudi and get the bag. So we'll just say Saudi Pro League and leave it at that. Scott Carson, he's 39. I think retirement is the obvious answer, but I'd like him to go and finish his career at Leeds where it began. So I'll say Leeds United. Phil Foden. I mean, I don't know that Phil Foden could survive anywhere that's not Manchester. So would he just go down the divisions with them? Probably not. I don't think he'd go to Arsenal. But I could see Arsenal being interested. Maybe he would go to Arsenal. Maybe he would go to Arsenal. Do you know what? We'll say Arsenal. He's worked under Arteta. We'll say Arsenal. Oscar Bob, really like him. Very, very talented. I think he would fit really well at Leverkusen as well. So we'll say Leverkusen for him. Rico Lewis, he's one that there'd be an awful lot of interest in because he can play in so many different positions. And he's a very good footballer. I'm going to say Villa for him too. James McAtee, another very, very talented young player. I feel like McAtee would work well. I feel like he'd work really well at Brighton, but I'm just trying to picture how they've already got quite a few players for that role. Bournemouth. James McAtee to Bournemouth. And Josh Wilson-Esbrand, the young fullback, came through the West Ham Academy. We'll say West Ham. He's a London lad. We'll put him back in London. And that's it. I'll be back later today with Two Footed Extra. See you then. Bye-bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.